we're educating students' mind, body, and spirit. Part of the idea of that is that athletics is not separate from education. It's a core part of our educational identity.
From the campus of Our Lady's University, this is For Good, Stories from Notre Dame, a behind-the-scenes glimpse into life under the Golden Dome and the powerful stories that drive Notre Dame to become a force for good in the world. Hello and welcome to For Good, Stories from Notre Dame. Today we are joined by Professor Tricia Bellia, the William J. and Dorothy K. O'Neill Professor of Law at the University of Notre Dame and the university's faculty athletics representative to both the NCAA and the ACC. A nationally recognized expert in constitutional law, cyber law, and higher ed policy, Professor Bellia brings a unique blend of academic and athletic experience to her work. She earned her undergraduate degree from Harvard, where she was a Division I tennis player, and went on to receive her law degree from Yale. At Notre Dame, Tricia brings not only deep legal insight, but also a rare perspective on the intersection of academics and athletics. Tricia, thanks so much for being with us. So I have a sense that most of the people that are looking in don't know much about your particular role. And so maybe start out and tell us a little bit about what does the faculty representative to the NCAA and ACC actually do?
Sure. So the faculty athletics representative, it's a position that Division I schools have. So each school will have someone in this role. And the idea is both to ensure institutional control of athletics, to support student athletes, to support student welfare, academic integrity at your institution. But also for us, it has a representative role. So the Atlantic Coast Conference that we're a member of, the ACC, we gather multiple times a year, the athletic directors, senior women administrators, and faculty athletics representatives, and we shape the policies and approach that the ACC takes to various issues in intercollegiate athletics. And likewise, we represent Notre Dame's perspective to the NCAA. So it's an opportunity for us. I think Notre Dame has a really unique perspective on athletics and its role in education. It's an opportunity for us to voice that to other schools and to try to advance policies in intercollegiate athletics in ways that we think are important to help that flourish and to help our students flourish.
So also as part of your role, you are the chair of the faculty board on athletics. Tell us a little bit more about that board. How is it constituted and what are some of its responsibilities?
Sure. So we have a committee. It has 11 faculty members drawn from across campus, as well as a few administrators. And our charge really is to be the principal advisor to Father Dowd on any educational issues in intercollegiate athletics. And if you think about that, that really runs the gamut, right? So academic issues. What kind of academic support do we provide to student athletes? Mm-hmm. How much class can they miss, right? What do their schedules look like? Who are the leaders of their teams? Who's the captain of a lacrosse team or any other team, right? All of those things that impact the student experience here, we really have an important role in. Also, just well-being of student athletes in general, right? What kind of training support do we give? What kind of mental health support do we give? How do our dietitians and nutritionists operate and what's their environment? So all of those things that really go into the overall student athlete experience, our committee has an advisory role on. So it's just a way of making sure, I think, that our policies are in accord with the mission of the whole institution, right? And that athletics has the role that we think it should, on our campus.
Which is really impressive because I remember many years ago when I came in as chief of staff to the president, Father Malloy at the time, and sat as an ex officio on the faculty board on athletics. I was shocked by the amount of time that this faculty board spends on looking at the schedules of the different sporting teams, looking at how many class misses? What are some of the guidelines that you have on that front?
So our basic guideline is we have coaches build schedules that have no more than 3 class misses Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and 3 Tuesday, Thursday in a semester in the regular season. We do have to deviate from that a little bit in some sports. I would say softball and baseball are a great example. It's beautiful outside right now, but it's not so much in February when the season starts. So those are 2 teams that you can see have to be on the road as their season starts. So there may be a difficulty in adhering to that to every sport, but that's really what we try to get our coaches to strive for. And honestly, it's really crucial because academics, it's difficult at Notre Dame. Sports are difficult at Notre Dame. But I think the only way that we're really able to have students succeeding in both is to make sure that we give them the ability to have the education that we promise to them, right? And if they're constantly missing class, that's not gonna work. So
it seems like, I think for many, there seem like there's 2 levels, right? There's kind of like the Ivy League model where they play very high level Division I sports, but not always with the major revenue sports. They're not playing for national championships. They're not quite invested enough to play at that level. Then you have many others that are playing at the highest levels, but it seems like oftentimes should be so bold to say that the student is left out of the student-athlete equation. They're athletes first, second and third, and then maybe students very secondarily. Is what we're doing here, trying to do both, is it really unique?
I think you put it well to say the Ivy side of things, we're matching up with the Ivies in Olympic sports, right? It is, I think it's very doable. There are some other schools that try to do it the way that we do it as well. I'm not sure if they're as successful. And I think every school is under pressure to change its ways, right? Whether it's letting just any student transfer in, right? Yeah. Don't have any academic standards, regardless of where they're coming from or what their coursework looks like. Let's take them, right? Those kinds of pressures, I think every school is facing. And, we're fortunate here that we have a set of principles that we articulate, that we try to stick to in terms of how our athletics program runs. And we have great partners in the university, both in Father Dowd and Pete Bavacqua and Jack Swarbrick before him, really, who were committed to those principles. And that enables us to say, here's where we draw the line. We're not compromising on this. We're going to make sure that the students get the education that we promise them.
I've heard you're probably one of the greatest unsung heroes at Notre Dame because I've heard Father John, Father Bob, Jack Swarbrick, Pete Bavacqua, and so many others around this campus just sing your praises and extol the incredible way in which you do this job. And we're so lucky to have you. But tell us a little bit. It seems like you're fighting more and more headwinds. Mm-hmm. I've heard from other schools top schools, that many of the coaches with the drive to win, they're having all of their students take online classes. Mm-hmm. So it gives them maximum flexibility to kind of work out whenever they need to work out or to do the team building exercises that they would like to actually go. It seems like it's more and more rare for student athletes to actually attend class with other students. Is that accurate?
That's, I would say, 100% accurate. And I mean, the good news is our coaches don't bring that pressure, right? It's just not going to work here. So any coach that's coaching at Notre Dame has already accepted that we're trying to do something different, right? And that what we're doing, in a way, it's going to produce not just the best student athletes, but the best servants and leaders in society, right? So I think that in order to coach at Notre Dame, you really have to buy that, very early on in the process. And you probably won't succeed here if you're fighting that at every turn. But I firmly believe, look, sports requires intelligence, right? We've got complicated playbooks that take they have to be learned very quickly. And the ones who are going to flourish are the ones who are willing to dig in and work hard at that, as well as chemistry, right? So I think that actually that's a winning formula.
Yeah.
I think that students who are taking all their online classes and are not engaged with their peers, they're not going to be teammates the way that those who are living in residence halls and working in group projects over in Mendoza, they won't be teammates like our students can be. So I do think that there's a place for maintaining that level of academic excellence, and it goes hand in hand with success on the field. Really, it's not in tension with it.
As Marcus Freeman has said so eloquently, choose hard.
Right.
If you want to come here, you're going to be challenged in every facet of your being, and this is going to serve you well. It's not just 4 years, it's for forever.
Forever.
And that's really, it's great. You've been in this job as the faculty rep for how many years for athletics?
I think I'm going on 16.
16 years. So have you seen the headwinds with all the changes, NIL, transfer portal, everything that's going on? Have the headwinds gotten stronger over your 16 years in your assessment?
So I would say, with the exception of the very, very beginning, when I stepped into this role, I thought I would be managing a set of internal problems on our campus, right? Class miss and, just the typical tensions that you have between academics and athletics on a campus. But even at that very early stage, that's right when the Big Ten network came into being. That's the moment that we started conference realignment. Mm-hmm. We switched from the Big East to the ACC. So from the very beginning, the changes were, it was one transformation after another. So I could say, this is the biggest transformation we have. We just had the House settlement approved very recently. But the reality is, it's been a constant stream of really, big changes. And we've been fortunate on the athletic side to have two leaders in Jack and Pete who really are able to navigate and grasp all of the rapid changes that are going on, and they've served us very well in terms of positioning us to be able to continue to do what we want to do in this space. So I don't know, there have just been a lot of headwinds, and I'm hesitant to say that one is more transformative than another.
Yeah, it's been more, the change has been more constant.
It's been a constant, right?
Yeah.
Not what I expected at all when I first took the role. It was a massive education right away to sit down with Jack Swarbrick, who, had just been the AD for a year when I got into this position, and to hear his take on where intercollegiate athletics was going. I remember going home from that and being like, I don't know what I just got myself into,
Well, you've navigated the turbulent waters incredibly well over the last 16 years. So there was a lot of talk before the first ever college football playoff game to be held in a home stadium when Notre Dame played Indiana, that you guys had to adjust and the whole academic calendar in that case. And this, I think 50 football players, roughly, correct me as I share with this, took finals the day before that playoff game. I think the rest of the world is astounded at something like that we didn't adjust to move it a week before, that they would have these academic pressures right before the game. Tell us a little bit, how unique is that and why is that noteworthy?
So I would say it's noteworthy not just for those 50 football players, but the reality is we had to change everyone's exams, right?
Yeah.
We couldn't just kind of go through the fall semester and say, well, gee, we're going to have a big problem if we make it to the playoff. I mean, that was actually an issue we identified in May of that year and said, boy, the CFP has kind of put out this schedule. As we look at this, it doesn't align very well with our academic calendar. What are we going to do about it? So it was a great example of partnership across the campus, on the athletic side, identifying the issue, the alternatives, the registrar's office just being willing to think outside the box a little bit and, how can we deal with this? Because if you think about it, if we'd left everything in place, we would have had literally thousands of students trying to take exams. I mean, set aside the football players.
Right. Thousands
of regular students trying to take exams on that Friday game day.
Yeah.
And I mean, you know what the campus felt like.
Right.
It was incredibly energized, but totally chaotic, right? Could you imagine sitting through your Gen Chem exam, you know, in that environment? So it really wasn't just about the athletes. It was about the whole entire campus.
Right.
How do we navigate this? But you're right, for our student athletes themselves, I mean, we looked at different options, and we actually were able to try to find consistent windows for our football team to practice. I mean, that's the other aspect of it, right? Exams are all over the place, and we typically say, if you have to miss practice for your exam, that's too bad. But that's not really fair to a team that's in that playoff situation. So we were able to identify the best windows for practice and then to clear exams 24 hours ahead. Not more than that, just the 24. We gave them 24 hours exam free before their the playoff game. And you know, that approach, it helps you ensure the integrity of everyone's exams, right? What we don't want is to come out of a situation to say, well, we had all these ad hoc makeup arrangements with faculty members, and how do we know that those exams were really taken by the players? And, you know, this enabled us to just maintain integrity, make the environment better for our students.
But this is a great preparation for life because, you know, you're going to play multiple roles simultaneously. You might be spouse, you might be parent, you might have a huge work assignment or presentation. It's not like you get to take the other stuff off. You've got to find a way to balance and you know, and properly prioritize your time. So it sets them up very, very well for success. We arguably win a national championship every year when it comes to the graduation of our students and student athletes, both on the football team, but across all 26 sports. Tell a little bit about, if you would, the role that you play and how important graduation rates are to you as a faculty rep and to the faculty board, but to the whole university, and why that's important. And the scale, what are we, about 26 sports, maybe 7-8% of the total student population?
Yes. Yeah. So first of all, I mean, I'll go back to something I said before, which is that the goal really is we promise these students an education when they come in, right?
Yeah.
Regardless of what opportunities and preparation you had in high school, if you've shown that you can come to Notre Dame and succeed here, we need to provide you the tools to succeed, right? So, and that means graduation. That means we need to provide you the opportunity to graduate. I would say I set the bar higher than that. It's not just to graduate, it's to flourish and to make the absolute most that you can of your educational opportunity. So I don't look at I look at graduation as the bare minimum, right? And really what we want is an experience that is above that. You know, that said, that is one of the ways in which we measure our success. We look at graduation rates. We also look at the academic progress rate, which is a little bit more of a real-time measure. And there we do really well also, right? So graduation rate really is a look back, right? So to see who graduated within a 6-year period of enrollment, whereas academic progress rate, or APR, is a measure that says, okay, last semester, were your students retained? Were they eligible to compete, right? So we do very well in both of those measures. Again, I would say...
We're like in the 90th plus percent.
Yeah, no, always, I mean, tied for number one in most programs that, you know, in teams that have a perfect APR or, you know, our like you said, our graduation success rate is really high. And, you know, that takes a lot of pieces, and the faculty board is involved in that. So one is making sure that students, when they transition from high school to university, have appropriate support. We do bring some students in the summer. Starting next week, we'll have students here for summer bridge. And a lot of times that helps a student who has a fall sport commitment it enables them to take a couple of classes to get a feel for the university and the campus and the resources in a time when there's so much less athletic pressure, and they can have that opportunity to be like, okay, this is what Notre Dame is. I can navigate this, so that come August, when everything starts really rolling fast, they're in a much better position. So I think that that's a really important piece. But just generally, our Office of Academic Services for Student Athletes, that at Notre Dame is an academic side resource, right? So it reports up through the provost, not through the athletic department, which means it has some independence in terms of how it can operate and support student athletes. And that office, I think, is a really critical resource in making sure that our student athletes hit those graduation markers and the academic progress rate, right? Because we can evaluate, what does the student need? How can we help them? Tutors in what area? Support from the writing center, whatever it is, to help a student navigate this really intense, time-consuming period in their life. And I think that office does a really great job.
Okay, so sometimes I worry about us getting caught up in our own hype here at Notre Dame. So you, being networked with the other faculty reps at the ACC and then within the NCAA, you have a really good sense of the landscape.
Sure.
Much more broadly. How unique is our student athlete experience? And do others really look to it as a model?
Sure. I think it is really unique. As we said, it mimics an Ivy League experience, I think, in some of the Olympic sports, where you're really providing just the highest level of competition and the highest level of academics at the same time. We're also doing that with our revenue sports as well. And I think that is what makes it unique.
Revenue being football, typically men's and women's
basketball, but also hockey, I would say, too,
hockey,
right?
Yeah.
What I notice most when I look at other ACC schools is that things that coaches understand and embrace here are just not really part of the picture. So class miss policy is a great example. The notion that we would actually restrict coaches in how they might schedule, that they have to get that cleared and approved, right? That doesn't necessarily happen at other institutions, where sometimes students will just walk in with a travel letter that says, I'm going to be gone these days, and the professor signs it, and that's the end of the conversation. And there's nobody necessarily like protecting that academic experience in the way that we do. So I think what I notice the most is the policies that we have that support student athletes, I think, are really strong. And a lot of other institutions try to model that, right? When I talk to other faculty athletics reps, can you give me a copy of your class miss policy, your excused absence policy, and how does it work on your campus? So I think that's...
You're still a very distinguished member here as we're recording this interview here in the Kresge Library of the Notre Dame Law School up on the third floor. But this takes the faculty rep role, and chairing the faculty board on athletics consumes a whole lot of your time. And you've been doing this for 16 years. And I guess my question is, why? It's not an easy job by any stretch. There's a lot of bridge building that goes on. And it seems like Notre Dame's niche in higher ed athletics is increasingly unique. But so my question is, what is the why for you?
Sure. So, as you alluded to, I did play a sport in college. And, it was a great experience for me. It was hard. It was really challenging to balance the time commitment. And of course, we're not talking about a level that it would be at, the time commitments only have gotten more and more over time, right? But it was a great way to round out my educational experience. And I emphasize educational because I fundamentally believe that athletics here is and should be part of education, right? We don't just do sports because, we have to. We don't have to, right? We choose to do it. And we do that because we're educating students mind, body, and spirit, right? And part of the idea of that is that athletics is not separate from education. It's a core part of our educational identity. So I know what it did for me in life generally, the way that it helped me be a better team member, to help me serve others, to help me lead others, right? I know what it did for me, and I'd love to see that replicated for as many students as possible. I want students to come here and have that as part of their education, because that's the way that we're going to form the best leaders and servants and people who are disciplined, who know how to deal with failure, right? There's a lot of failure they're going to encounter in life. And this is a training ground for that. And to know how to pick yourself back up and do the next thing for your family or your community or your workplace. So that to me is really important. It's all part of the formation of the students that we're privileged to have here on campus. And I want that formation to be really good, right? And I think it was good for me, and we need to try to keep it at the highest level.
Jack Swarbrick and now Pete Bavacqua, they talk about the coach educator.
Yeah.
And they will sometimes make the analogy that these coaches are going to spend so much more time over the 4 years and mentoring and modeling and nurturing relationships with their student athletes than any faculty member, would do. When you look at our coaches and the quality and passion and commitment to excellence that they bring, what are your reflections and any anecdotes about a kind of a coach-student-athlete relationship that come to mind?
Gosh, I mean, probably way too many. So, I have a daughter who just graduated, who was a student athlete, right? So I've just seen the way that she grew over the last 4 years. And, she's a tennis player also. Injuries, disappointment, real constraints on her time.
Yeah.
But just the way that she was supported, not only by her coaches, but by all the support staff around them, whether it was academic, the trainer when she was dealing with an injury, strength and conditioning. The network of people who supported her through our experience, it made her a different person, than she was when she walked in the door. And I think that, just my ability to see that on the ground with one program, but I see it replicated across our coaches. I can't really single one out.
Yeah.
But it's a really important part of our hiring process. When we hire coaches is to see if they understand, do they view themselves as educators, right? And what does that mean to them? How do they translate that on the ground in their coaching? It's a really interesting conversation to have with every single coach that we have the opportunity to interview.
Yeah, no, that's a great insight, and my guess is you would say that your daughter's education at Notre Dame, while rich in the classroom and in the residence hall, is that much deeper.
Yeah.
Because of her athletic experience as well.
And she would say that too. Yeah, no, absolutely. It has many facets, and that I think is what Notre Dame does so well. Whether it's sports or something else, right? We don't look at it as your education begins and ends when you walk through the door of whatever academic building. It's happening in your dorm, right? It's happening in your residence hall. It's happening on the tennis court. It's happening on the football field. That is all part of it, right? And so that's what I think it's we say it, but I think we also translate that abstract concept into different things on the ground. So
have we lost the narrative when it comes to college athletics right now, big time college athletics, when we think about NIL, the transfer portal, when we think about the kind of the facilities race, when we think about money kind of driving a lot of decisions at these places, the exploitation of the student and the student athlete equation, have we all of which are major concerns, not to diminish any of them, but if we lost kind of the focus and the sharing of what is good in the student-athlete development piece?
I think to a large degree we have, because we don't really explore these things that go on behind closed doors. And, what I'm talking about here in terms of scheduling and class miss and the student-athlete experience as a whole, we don't talk about those things.
Right.
As much as we should. And like I said, we emphasize it at Notre Dame, but it's not as though there are other schools that are trying to have those same conversations. It's just that's not where the media focus is right now.
Right.
It's maybe not as exciting as some other aspects, but
let's get together and have a session on class miss policy.
Right?
Yeah, the viewership will be low.
Will be low. So, but I think that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing here if I didn't believe to my core that we make better leaders and better servants this way, right? Or that it's one of the things that really contributes to, forming people into roles that they're going to bring and help society with in years to come. So I hate that we've lost that a little bit.
Or they have one final question, and this is a tough one. So we're going to break it into three parts here. What are you most proud of about the student-athlete experience and the role that you and the faculty board play in it? What excites you the most going forward? Maybe let's reverse the order of the next two. What are you most proud of? What concerns you the most? And then what excites you the most?
Sure. So I would say, what am I most proud of? I think from our perspective in Notre Dame that I firmly believe to my core that we have succeeded in maintaining the very high level of academics and athletics at the same time, right? So we've succeeded in providing the very best experience for our students, and you can see that across our sports. It's very easy to see, who's winning a national championship here or there. It's harder to see what they're doing in the classroom. You don't necessarily know. Oh, hey, that student on the football team, he graduated with a 3.9 in Mendoza. Like, you just don't get that necessarily the way that you should. So, but I would say the way we've been able to maintain athletic excellence while making every student have the opportunity to maximize their potential here. And again, I don't just mean graduation.
Yeah.
I mean more than that, right?
And you don't mean just academic. Like you said before, it's their welfare, mental health, and everything else. Not caring for injuries.
Yeah. So that's probably, I'm proudest that we've been able to maintain that standard. And as I look forward, I don't see any reason why we can't maintain that standard. So
what concerns you the most?
What concerns me the most, you mentioned it before, have we lost the narrative? I guess when you look at recruiting, there's almost a negative recruiting that can happen against Notre Dame. It's too hard there, right? Yeah, don't go there because you actually have to go to class if you go to Notre Dame, or that kind of negative recruiting out there. There are a lot of schools that can say to the students that we would want to come here, you have an easier path here, right? Why choose hard, right? That's Marcus's phrase, choose hard. Some schools would say, why choose hard? And I fear that as time goes on, and students see these alternative pathways, that they're going to be tempted to choose what's easier. In the long run, that's going to turn our way, right?
Yeah.
Because, take football. It's not just, this is a Marcus quote as well. You don't just want to play for that team. You want to own that team, right? And look around you at Notre Dame, and you're surrounded by students who are going to be super successful in the future.
Right.
And why don't you want to be alongside them, right? So I think that in the short term, it becomes difficult for our coaches to attract students who are willing to do what's hard, to make the hard choice. But I
think he said one time when he was recruiting, if he wanted to be, who's your favorite rapper or something, they were talking about, and you could be that rapper. But if you come to Notre Dame, you could become Jay-Z. You could own the entire company and have all these rappers work for you. That's kind of the metaphor he was using.
Yeah, no, I think that's so I maybe mangled his metaphor, but
that's right. Yeah.
You know? So I think that it does concern me, but it concerns me a little bit more in the short term than in the long term. Because I don't think, in the long run, I think in the long run, there are students who want an education, and there are parents who want their students to have an education, right? And they're going to have an influence on where they go. Yeah. So,
but you got to buy in. You got to choose hard if you want to come here. How about what excites you the most going forward?
Same thing. Just the continued opportunity to be able to use athletics. It's a great thing to have in and of itself, but as a vehicle for bringing out the best in our students. That's really what our whole university is about, right? How can we take students when they walk in the door, bring out the very best in them? And that's exciting on an individual student level when you see the kind of transformation that happens here, but it's exciting like when you step back and think about the whole picture, that there's a continued opportunity to do that.
Well, on behalf of us all at Notre Dame, let me thank you, because what you're doing is the invisible hand, the work of the invisible hand to make the student in the student-athlete equation experience rich for each and every one of our over 700 student athletes. And that's hugely important. If you were the head football coach or the coach of any of the sports that win a national championship, everybody would know your name. But what you're doing behind the scenes is no less great. And those of us who know you and what you're doing, we're incredibly grateful for the 16 years and counting of servant leadership that you've displayed and the impact that it's having on our student athletes. And it's a big part of why the student athlete experience at Notre Dame is, I think, unmatched across the board. And so we're really grateful for you. Tricia, we always close these sessions by inviting everyone to join with us in a prayer to Our Lady, for whom this university was founded and continues to be animated. So if you'd please join with me, we'll say Hail Mary. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Take care, God bless, and go Irish. Thanks so much again, Tricia.
Thank you.